Hey everybody, Matt Johnson here, and today we have a very special episode for you because we are diving into the body language of this guy. I know you hate it when I call him the good doctor, the former anesthesiologist who was on trial of trying to murder his wife by throwing her off of a cliff. He was convicted, folks, not of the top charge of second-degree attempted murder, but of attempted manslaughter. During the verdict, this is what he looked like. My big question is, was he actually crying? Were they crocodile tears or no tears at all? But why? Why was he acting this way? Here's the verdict in case you missed it.
Versus Gerhardt Konig. We, the jury in this case, finds the defendant guilty of attempted manslaughter based upon extreme mental or emotional disturbance, dated 4/8/26 by the foreperson.
Gentlemen, you can be seated.
There you go. Sitting down very slowly. I didn't put it in slow-mo, folks. And then he covers his face. What does all of this mean? I have a very special guest to help break it all down, Susan Constantine. She's a world-renowned body language expert. She's a jury consultant. She's also an author. I'll tell you about her book. It's fascinating. But now, the verdict and the breakdown of body language of Dr. Gerhardt Konig. Here joining the conversation, we have a very special guest. We have Susan Constantine, jury consultant, world-renowned body language expert, and author of the book, How to Spot a Liar in Just 7 Seconds. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Thank you, Matt, for inviting me. This is great.
So when we're talking about this guy, first off, if you haven't already watched the other videos with Susan Constantine about your take on his body language, Dr. Konig's and his wife's testimony, you have to check out those videos below. So right now we are going to analyze, though, the verdict and how he reacted, whether or not he was crying and whether or not they were tears of joy or defeat. So let's first begin with a baseline where he's giving testimony on direct and he's talking about his son and telling his son how he wanted to end his own life. But he has emotion at the end of this clip, and I wanted to get your take on this as a baseline.
Did you ever want to hurt her that day?
No.
You reacted to defend yourself in the heat of that moment. You said yes?
Yes.
Okay. But did you still feel bad about it?
Yes.
You became suicidal. Who's the one person in the world you wanted to call?
My son, Emil.
Before you jumped?
Yes.
Okay. Were you in a good state of mind when you made that call?
No.
How do you feel about the fact that you put him in that position and made that call to him?
So many feelings because he saved my life that day.
Also, convinced you not to jump?
He saved my life that day, but I put him in this position where he is now, where he thinks I tried to kill her. And for the last year, he's thought that. And
I heard him yesterday only refer to you as the defendant and not as dad.
yes.
Do you blame him? Sorry, 2 seconds. We'll take a break.
No, I don't blame him.
Okay, so there you have Dr. Konig. I see tears in this bit of testimony. He's on direct. He's talking about the son. I was trying to use this as a good baseline so that we can move forward. What are your thoughts on his testimony there?
Yeah, so there's a lot you could unpack here. So there, in him, and just like with other people, 100% of what they say doesn't have to be truthful or deceptive. Okay, there's a lot of what he's saying is truthful. It's the 20% of where you see the deception line up. He was asked specific questions and he was nodding yes, yes, yes. And then when he was asked about being suicidal, there was a long pause and he didn't say yes. So I do not believe that that's the part that's not true. He was not suicidal. The other part of that is that when you see someone that is blowing their nose, right? it's a very unusual way to show the psychophysiology. Usually it's more in the tears here, which then creates more of that mucus movement. You don't see that. But when you'll see his nose kind of flares out, there's a lot of scorn. And there's disgust. You can see it. It happens right in there. And I know that doesn't seem significant to others, but that disgust, quick little micro expressions, is called leakages, meaning he's unconsciously unaware. He's not consciously aware. It's unconscious. So they kind of leak out. So there is some disgust, anger, scorn when it comes to his wife. And there's no doubt that he's showing a little emotion, but here's the difference. If you remember Amber Heard was, I call it almost like a histrionic personality disorder. She was diagnosed with that from one of the experts. He is now in performance. This is performance, because when you're looking at that quick movements and the blowing of the nose, like this, and there's a lot of the theatrical, he's very demonstrative, and he's got to turn away, but then he recovers very quickly. See, and he kind of positions himself, he gets himself very quickly, and there's all these indicators that are telling me this is all for show. Okay. So I know a lot of people are thinking, well, is he showing emotion? Is he not showing emotion? He's not showing what we would see as genuine sadness. And how I know that is because he's always got tension here. Real sadness, you'll see the eyebrows lift in the center, almost creating this downward turn in his brow. That's significant, because behind every emotion, there are muscles that need to fire that create that emotion when a person's actually feeling it. When they're not really feeling it and they're in performance, they won't activate correctly. And that's where you get this disjointed expressions and movements underneath the skin, because I can see the muscle movements, or we call these action units, underneath the skin. So anyway, to make a long story short, say, all this theatrical stuff. Okay. I know he thinks he's convincing, but keep in mind, liars have to perform to make the expressions. A lot of times you'll see this in actors, right? They make the expressions much bigger than what they are so that they have more impact. That's what he's trying to do here.
Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting that he had turned away from the jury box. And watching the clip closely, and I know you have, you do see water, you do see a tear coming down, but he's performing to your point, and the jury didn't believe him. They convicted him, right? So
that was a crocodile tear.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a crocodile tear. We've seen the crocodile tears. How many cases have we covered together, Matt? I mean, when you're not feeling that sense of remorse and guilt, the little bit of tears, I'm sure that he feels remorseful when it comes to his son and his relationship with him. Okay, these are good ones. We're going to start talking about these right now.
No, yeah. And we're going to get to this moment too. And we're going to figure out whether or not you think that they are real tears or if he's even crying. But I want to get your take on the verdict of just him walking in the room first. So the jury's been called. It's the moment that we've been waiting for. And let me play that for you. So there he is getting ready. What are your thoughts?
Well, he's not showing a lot of anxiety. I mean, he's moving around, just trying to get situated. This would not be uncommon. He does appear to be more stoic. So he does realize the weight and the importance of this moment. This is a big moment. And we'd only see glimpses of him. His face, if this coloring is off, he does appear a bit on the pale side. Oftentimes when a person is in that position of fear, you'll see kind of like the blood rush away from their face. We've seen that, like, oh my God, you see it like the life drying out of him. So the fact that he's looking around and he's kind of peering around, he's hyper aware of the awareness around him, who's in the room, where are the cameras, and he understands the weight of it. But I don't see, this is what I see. I look at what I see and what I don't see. He does realize the seriousness of it. He is very controlled. So he's not hyper anxious, which is, interesting, but he understands the weight of it. I don't see any real fast, rapid blinking. There's a few little flutters here and there. He's not adjusting a lot of his clothes or doing, any sort of what we call manipulative type of gestures, which are self-soothing. He's more about who's in the room, and he wants to see where everybody's at. So see where he is at right there. Who's there? Who's watching? He's
He
kind of
does
getting
that a
lay of the
lot.
land.
Like, it's not just one glance, it's like several.
Yeah, exactly. Who's there? And we don't know why or who he's looking at or why that's important unless we were there in the courtroom.
Maybe he's looking to see if Ariel is there.
There you go. That's a possibility.
Okay, so let's watch the verdict together and then get your thoughts after we see it together for the first time.
Defendant guilty of attempted manslaughter based upon extreme mental or emotional disturbance, dated 4/8/26 by the foreperson.
Gentlemen, you can be seated.
So what are you seeing after he hears that he's guilty of manslaughter, which is the next one down on the verdict form? So the top one was attempted second-degree murder. That carried a potential life sentence. This doesn't. This is a manslaughter.
Yeah. So when they were calling it off, you could see the eyes kind of shut down, what we call eye shutters. And that is this is enormous, hard stuff to deal with. And when we deal with things like that, what do? We close down. So those eyes kind of close down. That is consistent with being something that's overwhelming. So you want to block it. It's just a natural psychophysiological way to response. Now, the other things that I wanted to bring attention to, and I wrote this down, is that he is in what we call this freeze response. Like he heard this horrible news he didn't want, right? But did you see where he was kind of sat down? It was almost like in slow motion. Okay. So it was like all of a sudden, it was almost like there was this reality is almost like it didn't kick in yet, right? And then the weight of it, he just kind of just fell right down, and it was right in that freeze motion. And so it was a shutdown. It was a freeze shutdown. Now, when he puts his hands over his face, this is where there's just enormous amount of could be grief. It can be shock, and it's not all, but just an absolute shock. Because we tend to do a lot of face blocking, mouth blocking. But there's also another thing is we didn't see it here because if you went a little longer in the video, you can actually see what we call digital retractors. He's like this, and then he does his digital retractors. I want you to think about last part of what we call fright. And if you remember, like the one girl that was on the subway and where she was stabbed, we covered that case, right? And she looked up, and what did she do? She went like this, retractors, right? When you are in that protection mode, we retract. Our fingers, our digitals retract, our body retracts. So that's what's happening here. So anyway, so he did the digital retractors, he's in freeze. That's where we see that slow motion kind of sunken in, where it was overwhelming. And it was like an emotional overload. And that's what we saw here.
I want to watch it again with you because that's fascinating in itself. But everyone that's been watching our coverage together on this and everybody online is wondering if he is in fact crying. Already the baseline, you told me that he was performing in his direct testimony. So is he crying now?
No, he is not.
And if he was, was it just a release or tears of joy or remorse or sadness? So I want to watch it again and see if you pick up anything else. But let's play it.
State of Hawaii versus Gerhardt Konig. We, the jury in this case, finds the defendant guilty of attempted manslaughter based upon extreme mental or emotional disturbance, dated 4/8/26 by the foreperson.
Gentlemen, you can be seated.
So now I'm noticing what you were talking about the sinking in and the turtling that he's doing.
Yeah.
And then this isn't tears.
No, this is not tears. This is shielding. when you are in, and he's got it over his face and his eyes of like, this is just unbelievable. Like you're blocking it out. Like what you've seen is like so overwhelming. And the natural thing is to block out the bad news, right? And the
So he
fact
thought
that
he was going to get off scot-free and walk out the courtroom.
I think he was hoping he would be, but look at his mouth. When there's no sadness there, there was no tears. He's not wiping any tears. It is one of those moments you can see his expression. See there, right there. See it? The digitals? Okay, that's when those are digital retractions. Okay, so we can say, oh, that's thinking and whatever, but when you pull in the way I see this, like when you think about the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wizard of Oz, and right when she dies, what happens to
just
the
watched
legs? Kind
that.
of crawl up. Right. So there's like kind of that thing kind of going on. But there's no, he's got it. This is shielding. This is blocking out bad news. It's unbelievable, overwhelming. He's in shock mode.
Is it
Yes.
is it associated with whoever he was looking for or around in the courtroom before the verdict, maybe?
I think this is the weight of that he now has been found guilty and he was hoping it wasn't going to happen. And his worst nightmare was just now realized. So I think it's just the whole thing and that's its totality, not just one thing or somebody in there. I mean, sure that all those are stimuluses, right? Because we've got all these people, there is that his parents right there?
I think so.
Yeah. Dad is mom is the one that's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And, the retraction. So I think that he was hoping, like all defendants hope that there's going to be some flicker of hope somehow. One juror or the jurors are going to find him not guilty by some other reason. They didn't prove their case. But this is not genuine sadness. He's not like flooded with sadness. His mouth keeps opening up because why? He's trying to bring air into his lungs, right? When you are in that moment of just fright, it's almost like you stop breathing, right? And then when it realizes you tend to just kind of grab your breath in because it's just overwhelming. And you can just think about when you're reading people, it's not as hard as you may think. I mean, I'm able to put all the technical terms to it and all that stuff and know the science and the research behind it.
Well, you're
People.
world renowned. Like you're
Thank you.
the top.
Thanks. I really appreciate that, Matt. But when you watch people and watch their expressions and during moments, you start to see how interesting people are and how certain emotions are they're universal. So when we see certain things, grief, despair, sadness, overwhelming, this is what we see. So we can tie that to the verdict. That's the stimulus.
Yeah, it's just fascinating, because clearly he believed his own performance when he was testifying. And he's such a narcissist that he chose to testify and blame his wife, who he attacked. He attacked her. The jury agreed on that.
Well, and then he wanted everyone to believe that she came after him too. So it was kind of
Which
like
is bizarre. Run away. Run away.
Run away. It just wasn't believable. And people naturally have a BS barometer built in. They're listening and they're watching and going, this doesn't make sense. They put it together. His stature, her stature was already in the bag, what he brought in the bag. I mean, the whole thing was just a big setup to do the deed. And the one thing is I want to bring attention to, and this is something we've never have chances to talk about when we're on TV shows, is that the reason why people do this is because they've gotten to the point where they're angry because of the situation, right? Because they're angry with this whole thing, with this alleged affair that she might have been having. And then it goes emotional affair, right? Emotional affair. And then it goes into disgust. So when we talk about, we call it Konig, anger, disgust, and contempt. And disgust is when you raise to that level of disgust. And remember, we saw it with the flaring of the nose. That's how he felt about her. That is a really, really powerful precursor to imminent violence. You can tell when a person has got those three things. Then they get to the level of disgust and anger and contempt towards a person, they have to eliminate. Because disgust is something where you smell it, we got to discard it. right? You got garbage in your house. Oh my God, I got to take it out to the trash. That's what we find in the research. When a person has gotten to that point, they have gotten to the point of elimination. And that's how he decided he was going to do it. He was going to eliminate her that day on that cliff.
It's just, first off, your analysis is spot on and it's terrifying, but it's a good like thing to watch for in people, I guess. But the fact that someone could even rise to that level is just downright frightening, you know.
It is because they've never been able to deal with their emotional triggers, and a lot of it is their thinking. Right? They don't have the emotional intelligence to be able to process that information and respond in a positive way. It's just they can't do it. Their anger and disgust and hatred is just taking over. It's almost like they're possessed with it, right? And the only way to get rid of it is to discard it. They don't know how else to do it. The other thing I want to mention is that when you're putting your hands over your face, he's blinding himself from it, right? It's like, this is just too hard for me to, it's like going down a roller coaster ride and you know that it's really far down. You go, oh, I don't want to see it, right? This is what we do when we don't want to be faced with something, or we feel shameful, or we feel guilty, or we're embarrassed. There's some sort of emotions that are going on. And the only way we know is if we're there. Because in reading people, we always have to take things into context. We always have to consider the account, and we also have to consider their baseline, all those things. And then we have to consider what are out some of the other reasons why he might doing this. We know we can tie it right into that verdict and his response. So it's fairly consistent with a hypothesis of how his body language is hypothesizing actually how he's feeling.
What are you predicting we see at sentencing? I would imagine the victim, his wife who he attacked, Gerhardt Konig, I would imagine she's going to give a statement at sentencing in how she lives in fear. But I mean, what about this guy? The defendant found guilty of attempted manslaughter. Do you think, someone that chooses to testify, who's on the stand for 2 days, who lies to his jury, and then breaks down like what you saw, that performance at the verdict, do you think that we're going to hear a statement in elocution or no?
Well, I'm wondering if he's going to actually want to respond in some sort of way, right? And you hear all of the impact statements, so to speak, right? We want them to. His wife is going to talk. They've already made up their mind, and they've already come up with a verdict. They're already unanimous, right? So at this point in time, they don't believe anything about him. So I would assume that jury is going to come down pretty hard. So whatever that max is, I think he's going to come pretty close to it.
Yeah, and we'll find out what the judge decides, because he's facing up to 20 years behind bars there in the state of Hawaii. But it'll be interesting to see if he continues his lies or actually takes responsibility for what he was convicted of and what he did, which is downright awful. I mean, trying to throw his wife off of a cliff there in Hawaii on her birthday and then beating her with a rock because, again, I just can't say it enough. Just walk away. Like, I don't even care if she has you by the you-know-what. Just walk away.
That was the funny part, actually. I had to laugh at that part.
And how many times he said it? How many times?
Well, because when they repeat things, they're wanting, that is a really important point he wants to bring out. He's thinking that that's what's going to persuade that jury. Like every guy that's on the jury is going, oh, and it's like, and every woman's going, yeah, I'm glad you grabbed him there, so it's kind of like, I think you're going to have some different opinions there. But overall, juries are really interesting. And as you know, you've been in this business for a long time, Matt, and we've watched a lot of them. Jurors generally don't change their mind from the beginning of the opening statements. I mean, what they felt like right then, it's carried right to the very end of the trial. And then all the stuff in between, a lot of it is they're just kind of putting the pieces together. In this case, it was so overwhelming that, for us to believe what he was dishing out would be really hard to do that. It would be so difficult to prove him as innocent than it would be guilty. There's just too much stuff there for us and that jury to look at to thought anything else other than guilty, guilty, guilty.
Yeah, guilty, guilty, guilty. And I can't remind the viewers enough. So if you liked this video, you really have to see Susan Constantine's, analysis of his testimony, because the breakdown of that was fascinating. And then also the wife, the victim in all of this, your analysis on that was also fascinating. It's always fun to talk to you, my friend.
Yes.
We've been, having these discussions just in short on TV for years, but it's fun to like break down things in longer form on the YouTube channel. So thank you for being here.
Yes, I actually like this format so much better, Matt. I'm so glad that we're able to have these discussions so that, we're not looking at these little, 1-minute clips or 2-second things. We actually can get into the real guts of it. And as an analyst, that's the hardest part, to be able to throw something out there in a sound bite or something. But with your show here makes it so much easier for us to kind of, you and I, to really have these really deep discussions and really break this down for your viewers. So you guys keep watching, okay? Because I'm sure we're going to be doing a lot more stuff.
How do we get a hold of you?
Well, SusanConstantine.com is me. Listen, if you're someone that's in prison or whatever, don't reach out to me. I get enough of those. Okay. Especially when they say they've been in prison for life and of course they're innocent. I don't want those calls, please. But here is where I need your help, is that I want to take my new book to a New York Times bestseller, and you guys can help me. If you go on Amazon right now, and you can actually pre-order my book, and you guys will be the first ones to get it. And actually, I think, Matt, you're going to be giving me a little endorsement. So I'm really super excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited to help out, and I'm excited to help promote it. And we're going to have all the information in the show notes below. But congratulations on the new book. It's going to be a super success. Susan Constantine, jury consultant, world-renowned body language expert, and author of How to Spot a Liar in 7 Seconds or Less. Thank you, my friend.
My pleasure.
Gerhardt Konig is the former anesthesiologist there in Hawaii. He's 47 years old, convicted of attempted manslaughter by his Hawaii jury. He is going to be sentenced on August 13th, 2026. Then I'll bring you coverage. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe. Also, thank you for being here. And thanks again to my guest, Susan Constantine. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next time.